Felicitous greetings, fellow fanatics. Welcome back, one and all. I'm Adam the Fanatic, and today we're taking a look at Dominion, Templegate Games' digital adaptation of Rio Grande Games' deck builder of the same name. We're going to be exploring not only the app itself, but looking at every single expansion and ranking them. If you're already familiar with Dominion and just want to know how the app handles, jump ahead to the time coordinates indicated on the left side of your screen. On the other hand, if you want to jump ahead to the exploration of the expansions, jump ahead to the time coordinates on the right side of your screen. Without any further ado, let's dive in! In Dominion, 2 to 4 players, or up to 6 with the Intrigue expansion, will be competing to have the most victory points by time one of 2 endgame triggers happens. If the province pile runs out of cards, or if any 3 other piles run out, then the game ends immediately after the current player ends their turn. At the onset, each player will have a deck with 3 estates, cards that cannot be played but give 1 victory point at the end of the game, and 7 coppers, treasures which give 1 coin each when played. Each game will have a kingdom consisting of 10 supply piles, each containing 10 identical cards, available for all players to purchase from. You'll also have 7 standard piles that are used in every game. Copper, silver, and gold act as basic treasures worth 1, 2, and 3 coins respectively, while estates, duchies, and provinces act as basic victory point cards worth 1, 3, and 6 VP each. You also have these nasty curse cards which are worth a negative victory point, so obviously you'll want to avoid that in most circumstances. On a player's turn, you'll begin with the action phase, where you can play a single action card from your hand. However, many cards, such as Village or Market, will allow you to play extra actions. Market here is especially useful for teaching as it shows the 4 most common effects of cards. Plus cards allows you to draw that many extra cards from your deck into your hand. Plus actions allows you to play more action cards. Plus buys allows you to buy extra cards when you get to the buy phase, and coins give you extra money to spend during the buy phase. After you're done playing action cards, you'll move on to the buy phase where you can play as many treasure cards as you would like, and then may purchase a single card. If any actions or treasures gave you additional buys, you may purchase more cards, but still must be able to afford their total cost. Whenever you obtain a card, unless instructed otherwise, you'll place it into your discard pile. At the end of your turn, you'll discard all cards you've played, draw a new hand of 5 cards, and then play passes to the next player. Whenever you need to draw a card for any reason, if your draw pile is depleted, then you'll reshuffle your discard into your draw pile. As you can see, the basic rules of Dominion are quite simple. Where the intricacies come in is the effects of various cards. For example, there are a number of different attack cards that interfere with your opponents, such as Militia, which will force them to discard down to 3 cards. However, there's also a number of reaction cards, such as Moat. This one allows you to protect yourself from attacks so long as it's in your hand. And other cards may let you trash a card, permanently removing it from your deck so that you may draw more powerful cards more often. Nothing in the base game gets too wild, and the base game is free for anyone to download and play. Without ever buying an expansion, you'll still have the option to try a lot of different ways of doing things. You'll be able to use the base game by selecting your own cards for the kingdom, using the built-in randomizer, or selecting from a list of suggested setups. You can even save your own favorite setups too. You can also play the daily challenge or join in multiplayer games even if they're using expansions that you don't own. Only the host of a game needs to own the expansions in question, allowing players to easily share their favorite sets with friends. On another note, purchases are saved to your email, so if you buy an expansion on Android and then boot up Dominion on Steam, so long as you're logged into both with the same email, you'll only have to buy them once. The app also has a number of different options for automating responses to certain cards. You can disable all these if you wish, but the freedom of choice they give is excellent. There's many different options to customize your experience, including turning automatic card counting on or off. Honestly, my only real problems with the game are not problems with this adaptation, but with Dominion itself. But we'll get to that when we reach the conclusion. Dominion is not the first deck builder. That honor instead goes to StarCraft the board game. However, Dominion probably is the first pure deck builder, as it took the concept from StarCraft and made it into the whole show. Not to mention, Dominion is much easier to get into and learn, and a lot easier on your wallet as well. Dominion made a big splash when it first released in 2008, and since then has received no less than 15 expansions, plus a handful of promo cards. And since 2016, older sets have been receiving 2nd edition updates, which take out some cards that are either too strong or too weak and replaces them with newer cards. After the base game came Intrigue. Before discussing the cards, it should be noted that Intrigue unlocks the option to play with 5 or 6 players, so if that's important to you, this one should definitely be at the top of your list. Intrigue doesn't change up the formula too much, but it does have cards like Pawn and Steward, which give you options in how they're used, and it also introduces multi-type victory cards, such as Mill and Noble, which can be used as actions, or Farm, which can be played as a treasure. Next is Seaside, which thematically has a lot of pirate-themed cards. More importantly, Seaside introduced duration cards to the game. Duration cards are not discarded at the end of your turn and will continue to have effects after being played. Many of them, such as Lighthouse, Sailor, and Caravan, will have effects that take place at the start of your next turn. After the effect of a duration card is completed, you then discard it. Seaside also has Native Village and Island, both of which mention mats. Cards on mats are not in your deck or discard pile, but will still count towards your final score at the end of the game. After that came Alchemy, the first of 3 small expansions for the game. Small expansions still work much like large expansions, they simply don't include as many cards as large expansions. Thematically, Alchemy has a more mystical feel to its theme than most other sets, and most kingdom stacks in Alchemy require a secondary resource to purchase, a potion. Potions are treated as basic treasures and cost 4 coins to buy. They don't do anything on your own, but this allows you to buy powerful new cards, such as the University, the Alchemist, or the Golem. Next on the docket we have Prosperity. Prosperity is all about big money. Not only does it bring a lot of expensive cards to the game, such as Expand and King's Court, but it also includes no less than 9 unique treasures, including the likes of Tiara, Crystal Ball, and Bank. But it also introduces 2 new basic cards. Platinum acts as a 4th tier basic treasure, and Colony is a 4th tier basic victory card. This allows players to set their sights higher than ever. In games with Platinum, colonies must be used, and depleting the colony stack will end the game just as it would with provinces. On to Cornucopia, another small expansion. Cornucopia includes a lot of cards which reward variety in your deck. For example, Menagerie lets you draw extra cards if every card in your hand has a different name. Horn of Plenty allows you to count up the unique names of cards you've played and claim a card with cost equal to or less than that number. And Fairgrounds gives you 2 VP per 5 unique card names in your deck at the end of the game. Now we move on to the Hinterlands expansion. Hinterlands has more reactions than normal, with no less than 6 reaction cards, including the likes of Fool's Gold, which you can replace with a real gold when another player gains a province, and Tunnel, which allows you to gain a gold when it's discarded outside of your cleanup phase. It also includes a handful of cards that have effects that trigger when you buy them, such as Nomads, Inns, and Farmlands. After that, we move on to the Dark Ages expansion. Dark Ages gives you the option to replace your starting estates with 3 unique shelter cards. These provide no VP, so you may want to get rid of them even more quickly than normal. Few cards in this set don't go into the supply. So for example, you can buy a Hermit normally. If you do so, then on a turn where you play the card but do not make any purchases during your buy phase, you'll return the Hermit to the supply and instead take a Madman card. Other cards such as Marauder and Pillage may allow you to gain spoils, which are effectively single-use golds. Meanwhile, some attacks such as Cultist and the aforementioned Marauder will force enemies to take ruins, which are effectively very weak action cards. Then there's the Knight stack. When you use Knights, they have a stack of 10 unique cards. Each share an attack effect, but each has its own effect beyond this, making them slightly different from one another. And finally, Dark Ages also has the most infamous card in the entire game, Rebuild. The designer himself has expressed regrets about putting this card into the game due to how overpowering it is when it's in the kingdom. On to guilds, this was the last of the small expansions. Guilds introduced coffers to the game. Coffers are tokens that act as coins. However, unlike other coins, you can save these for future turns. Cards like Banker and Merchant Guild can give you coffers, while Butcher gives you a special way to spend them. Meanwhile, Guilds also has a few cards with overpay. Overpay allows you to pay beyond a card's basic cost for added benefit. So for example, if you pay 7 for a stonemason, you could gain a couple bakers with its effect. Next, we have adventures and, pardon the pun, but this is where Dominion really started to get adventurous with what the game could do. Firstly, it introduces reserve cards. These cards are basically played in 2 stages. When you first play them for their normal effect, you'll place the card onto your tavern mat. But each reserve card has an effect which lets you call it for different effects. Ratcatcher allows you to trash a card at the start of your turn. Duplicate allows you to gain a second copy of a card costing up to 6, and Royal Carriage allows you to copy the effect of an action card which you just played. Adventures also introduces Travelers. Travelers are special sets of 5 cards each, which only the cheapest, the Page and Peasant, are available to purchase. However, each time you play a Traveler, you have the option to effectively level them up. So for example, the Page becomes a treasure hunter, then a warrior, next a hero, and finally a champion. When you finally get the champion, she'll protect you from all attack cards for the rest of the game. But the most lasting change that Adventures brought was event cards. When playing with events, you'll have 1 to 4 cards next to the kingdom that can be used. Each event has an effect that can be activated by using a buy in the appropriate number of coins, but they do not go into your discard pile. Rather, they remain where they are and may be used again by you and other players so long as they have purchases remaining. And finally, some cards will put tokens into play. Negative tokens take effect once and then are discarded. Positive tokens instead are placed on a pile in the kingdom, and whenever you play a card from that pile, it has the added effect of the token in question. Next up is Empires. This expansion introduces debt. Some kingdom and event cards will have this hexagonal symbol, which indicates you may take them even if you cannot afford them. You don't even have to make a down payment. When you do, you'll take the appropriate number of debt tokens. However, so long as you have debt tokens, you cannot buy any cards. Instead, any coins you gain must be used to pay off debt at a 1-to-1 rate. Don't worry, there is no interest involved. Empires also introduces split piles, which include 2 sets of 5 cards instead of 1 set of 10. When you use a split pile, you'll need to purchase the lower cost cards before you can purchase any of the higher cost cards. Split piles are usually connected both thematically and mechanically. For example, Catapult triggers both of its abilities when you trash rocks with it, while Bustling Village can return settlers to your hand. And to round things out, Empires also added landmarks. These go into a side slot like events, and each gives an additional way to earn victory points, either through VP tokens or simply giving an extra goal for the end of the game. On to Nocturne. On a thematic note, this set definitely has a lot more supernatural elements than the others, even when compared to Alchemy. First major change Nocturne brings are night cards, along with the night phase. After purchases, but before cleanup, you'll have a night phase where you may play as many night cards as you wish from your hand. These work similarly to actions, but the timing means you have to think about them a little differently. Nocturne also introduces heirlooms. If playing with a kingdom pile that mentions an heirloom, each player will start with 1 less copper in their deck and instead has the appropriate heirloom in its place. For example, if playing with Puka, each player will start with a Cursed Gold, which gives them 3 coins when they play it, but also forces them to take a curse. Nocturne also has a number of cards which draw boons and hexes. At the start of the game, they'll shuffle up each into their own pile, and when a card tells you to reveal a boon, you gain its bonus immediately. Hexes are similar, but bring about nasty negative effects instead. Next is Renaissance, which not only brings back coffers, but also introduces villagers. Villagers are similar to coffers in that you gain tokens that you can keep until you use them, but unlike coffers, you don't spend them for extra coins, but extra actions. There's also artifacts, unique cards which there's only 1 copy of in the game. Whenever you would gain it, you steal it from whichever player currently has it. Each artifact is tied to a specific action card, and keeping control of them can be rather tricky, especially at higher player counts. Renaissance doesn't have any event cards, but it does introduce projects, which take up a side slot in similar fashion. Projects can only be purchased once, but when you do, they provide a permanent bonus that lasts for the rest of the game. Now on to Menagerie, which, as you may have guessed by the name, this set has a lot of animal-themed cards, and horses in particular are a major part of it. When playing with any stack that can provide horses, you'll add them as a non-supply pile. Horses are a basic action that gives you 2 cards and 1 action. Each time you use one, it's returned to its pile. Menagerie also introduces the exile mechanic. When you exile a card, it's set aside and not returned to your deck or discard, but it is not trashed. Exiled cards are still counted towards your score, and if you ever gain another copy of a card that you've exiled, you may also discard all exiled copies of the card, making for some very unique combos. Menagerie also brings back events, and once again has another type of card that can go into side slots, Ways. When playing with 1 or more Ways, you can choose to ignore the effect of any action cards you play, and instead play it as though it had the effect text of one way of your choice. The penultimate expansion on this list is Allies. Allies has a handful of split piles that come with 4 copies of 4 cards each. Again, these are arranged from cheapest to most expensive, but this time you don't have to deplete the cheapest cards to get further down. Rather, the cheapest card in each set allows you to cycle them, placing the current card on the bottom of the stack. Allies also introduces a new currency, Favor. Favor is gained as tokens and may be saved for future turns. So what do you spend it on? Allies includes a number of namesake ally cards. At the start of the game, you may put these into the side slots similar to events, and each gives you a different way to spend Favor tokens. And finally, we have Plunder, the most recent full-size expansion available for Dominion. Plunder has Seaside's focus on duration cards and Prosperity's focus on unique treasures. If you like unique treasures, you'll be happy to know that there's more than a dozen here, and that's without even counting loot. So what is a loot card then? A number of different cards in Plunder give you different ways to acquire loot. Loot cards are shuffled at the beginning of the game, and when you gain one, you do so at random. Most loot cards will give you 3 coins like a gold, but also has an added effect beyond that, such as giving you an extra buy or doubling as an attack. Endless Chalice is particularly fun as it gives you an extra coin and an extra buy every turn for the rest of the game. Plunder also includes some more event cards and introduces another type of card for side slots, traits. For each trait, a supply pile is chosen at the beginning of the game which it affects. It might make that pile cheaper than normal, allow each player to start with a copy in their deck, or allow you to trash a card from your hand when you buy a card from that pile. And before I go into ranking these, I should briefly mention the promo and first edition packs. The promo packs add cards that were given away at conventions and the like for the physical game, and some of them can be pretty interesting. I particularly like the Sauna and Avanto split stack, which is included in the second promo pack. And if you want a bit of craziness, the Black Market is certainly one of the most unique cards in the game. As for the first edition packs, these are cards that were removed from the game for second edition printings, most of which fall into one of 2 categories. Either they were really weak and not worth using, or they were overpowered and dominated games that they tended to be in. Even the game itself tries to dissuade you from buying them. These were removed for a reason, but if you want them anyway, here they are. So yeah, the first edition packs are really for die-hard fans only. So then, what are my recommendations? My top picks go to Renaissance, Menagerie, Allies, and Adventures. All these introduce fun and unique mechanics that aren't found in other sets, and all of them offer side slot cards which further add to your options on your turn. Coffers and Villagers make Renaissance my favorite, and the projects certainly aren't bad either. Menagerie's horses are another really fun mechanic, and ways help you deal with dead actions when you have no other use for them. My next 3 picks are Prosperity, Guilds, and Cornucopia. The addition of Platinum and Colonies makes for some really interesting new angles of attack, while the new treasures can be pretty interesting at times. Guilds would probably be higher on my list if not for the fact that Coffers make a return in Renaissance, but it's still a fun set overall. And Cornucopia's focus on rewarding variety helps to prevent decks from all feeling too much the same. In the middle, we have Empires, Nocturne, Plunder, and Seaside. Empires does add some fun concepts, but I feel that both events and split piles are done better elsewhere. Nocturne isn't bad, and some of the new concepts are fun, but it's the only post-adventures expansion not to feature any side slot cards, and both boons and hexes add a bit of an unnecessary luck element. Seaside and Plunder aren't bad by any means, and if duration cards are your favorite way to play, you should definitely place them higher. They don't feel like they really offer anything too special. Next we have Hinterlands and Intrigue. Again, I wouldn't say these sets are bad, they just don't bring anything special to the table that you can't find in other sets. Although it should be noted that the digital version of Intrigue is cheaper than all other large expansions, and as aforementioned, it does include the upgrade to allow you to host games with 5 or 6 players. As someone who generally prefers 1v1, this isn't very important to me, but if you're used to playing with larger groups, that should definitely be a consideration for you. And finally, we have Dark Ages and Alchemy. Dark Ages just feels like a very mean-spirited set in general. Lots of nasty attacks, games drag on, and the shelters mess with the balance for cards that make use of estates. Alchemy, however, is probably my bottom pick. Potions may seem like an interesting idea as a secondary resource cost, but because this is the only set that uses it, it doesn't mix well with other sets. You dilute the card pool with too many non-alchemy cards, the potion just isn't worth getting. This not only makes it a poor mix with other sets, but also makes it practically worthless for randomized kingdoms. So there you have it, my suggestions for all 15 expansions. All in all, Dominion is a pretty interesting game. Although I'll still stand by the claim that StarCraft started the genre, Dominion was the first pure deck building game. It still feels pretty unique. Most deck builders since then have gone more the Ascension route, wherein there's a sword deck that gets shuffled each game. This does allow for a greater variety of cards. There's also a bigger luck factor, as sometimes the card you want comes out right as your turn ends. Dominion avoids that with the Kingdom stacks, which has its own pros and cons. The base game is pretty simplistic, and those who are used to more modern deck builders may find that turns them away from the game, but the expansions do offer far more depth and variety than what you get with the base game alone. However, Dominion does have one glaring weakness that I absolutely must address. Going first is a major advantage in this game. There is absolutely no benefit to going second, and the more players you have, the worse it is to go last. Not only do you have an uneven turn count, but players that go before you have an earlier opportunity to play attacks, which can definitely swing things in their favor. Despite this, Dominion remains fairly unique in the deck building landscape. With its expansions, it offers a wide variety of literally hundreds of different cards to play with. If you're already a huge fan that has everything physical and just need confirmation that this is true to that experience, you'll probably want to dive right in and get the bundle with all the major expansions included. But if you're newer to the game, I hope that this helps you pick out an expansion or two that you may enjoy wading into the game with. In conclusion, I find Dominion Digital to be worthy a respectable 8.6 out of 10. Dominion Digital is currently available for PC via Steam, as well as Android and iOS devices. If you're interested in purchasing or learning more, links are included in the description. But what about you? What do you think of Dominion? What deck builders do you enjoy? If you have any questions, remarks, or opposing points of view, leave them in the comments down below. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and ring that bell. And if you really enjoy my work, please consider funding my channel on Patreon. Until next time, farewell, fellow fanatics. Thank you again for watching. I have plenty more to share with you if you're interested. You can click up here above my head to subscribe to my channel. You can click over here on my monitor to see the most recent video that I've worked on. Or if you prefer, you can click up here to open this mysterious vault and see what video that the YouTube algorithm has picked just for you.